Thank you so much, worship team. That was some awesome songs. So at this time, we want to take all the kids, and if you go through that door in the back to the, I think that's the east wing. Is that correct? But anyway, Laura will be with the kids, and she has a special program just for you. So, Micah and Laura Myers. Now, what a truly just, awesome inspiration that they have. They, as long as I can remember here at Lake Taps, during our mission emphasis, we've always highlighted our missionaries. But it's kind of been very special to have Micah and Laura with us. They were sent out from LTC in 2019. And it's just been, I remember them going out there, and many people were asking, are you really going to go out with the little kids, and you're going to go out somewhere where you don't even know where, you don't even have a house, you don't even know the language, so what are you doing? And so, but, they were steadfast to God's calling, and they just kind of had God lead them and just kind of blessed them in so many ways. In the last couple of months or 3 months, we've had Mike and Laura be able to stay at our parsonage and be part of our congregation here, helping out and leading some Bible studies and just different things. And just Micah will be sharing a little bit more about that. But I'm just really blessed to introduce Micah just for this morning, for tonight, and just have him do that. And for those of you who have kids, ask the kids what they learn in the back with Laura, because it all ties into what we're doing tonight, and that's to just kind of really praise the Lord for all the work that he's doing through our missionaries. Micah?
Thank you. All right, good evening. Am I on? Yeah? All right, Eli, good. Okay, let's see. There we go. Got the slides. Okay, good evening, everybody. I just want to start out by saying thanks to Ron, to Fran, to all the missions committee, to all of you who put so much work into this. Wasn't this good tonight? Wasn't the food good? Give a hand to them. Well, yeah, so I'm Micah Myers, as Ron said. And this is my family. I think there's a prayer card on every single table, so if you haven't looked at it already, we're up there on the screen as well. So that's my wife Laura and I, and Addie, who is 5, and Declan, who is 2. As Ron said, we are missionaries to Papua New Guinea. We've been there since 2019 when we were sent out. And yeah, so tonight my goal and purpose is just going to give you an update on our ministry, what we've been doing for these past 4 years in Papua New Guinea. We were here in 2018, actually, at Missions Emphasis Weekend, while we were still raising our support to go overseas. So 5 years ago, I stood up here. I had the whole weekend again. I shared here at men's breakfast and then spoke on Sunday. So here we are 5 years later doing the same thing. And so what have we been doing these last 5 years? And this is going to be a pretty informal time. I have a bunch of pictures, a bunch of stories that I'm going to be telling. And seriously, if anybody has a question, you feel free to throw your hand up there. And if I see it, I may call you out. I may not see it, and I may just keep talking. Or depending on who it is, I may skip over you. But yeah. So yeah, last time we were here, I showed a graphic very similar to this, and I talked about our strategy in church planting. What our plan was, how we were going to go to an unreached people group, a group that had no access to the gospel, had no Bible in their language, a group that has a language that is unwritten, and how we were going to learn their language. Our goal was to move in among them, learn their language, and share with them the gospel of Jesus Christ. And this is kind of the big picture, as it's called, the different stages. And last time we were here in 2018 when we shared, we were right here at the end of Equipping 1, if you can see that up there. It's called post-training. We'd gone through missionary training. We'd gone through Bible school. We've been educated with a strategy of how to do church planting among the unreached, and we were just getting started. in that. And then in 2019, we moved over to Papua New Guinea in July of 2019, and we began to learn the culture and the language of the people of Papua New Guinea. Papua New Guinea is a pretty crazy country. Even though they're only about the size of California, the country itself, there's over 850 languages in this island of Papua New Guinea, which is more than any other country in the world. It's really, really crazy how that is. So one of the things about Papua New Guinea, they developed a language to communicate with each other called Talk Pidgin. It's a Pidgin language. It's just kind of a hodgepodge of different languages, mainly sourced from English and German and some tribal languages. So we spent the first year learning Talk Pidgin and learning the culture of Papua New Guinea. And that was a really, really awesome time for us. We actually were able to visit some tribal churches where the elders of the church spoke Talk Pidgin, where a missionary had gone, learned their language, translated the Bible. And this guy here in this picture, his name is Pasca. He's an elder of this church on the island of Tigok. So we stayed on that island as we were finishing up our Talk Pidgin study, and we got to sit under him and hear about the things that went well with the missionaries, some of the failures that they had, and how to learn from that. We got to sit with the missionaries that were still there, the Martinez family, and learn from them the strategy that we learned in training. How did it actually work in practice, and what were the things that had gone well in this village and among this people group? And it was awesome just sitting under this very, very godly man, Pasca. And I pray that one day there's some Lambena people who can be as godly as this man was. So in 2020, we moved into, among the people of Lambena. We joined a team. This is our team. There's two other families on the team. We have Jason and Tammy Hughes. They're on the right here. And then in the middle there is Adam and Anna Ferguson. One of the coolest things about our team is that couple in the middle. That's actually my sister and my brother-in-law. So we get to be in the village with my nieces and nephew, and with my brother-in-law and my sister. And it's one of the coolest things to do ministry with family. And both of those couples are in the village right now. They're continuing to learn the language and the culture of the Lambena people. So be praying for them if you can remember. This is a picture of our village. Our village is called the village of Yambaitak among the Lambena people. We're at the foothills of the central mountain range of Papua New Guinea. Our people group they're a rather small people group. Again, Papua New Guinea, it's 850 languages, but there's only about 8 or 10 million people in all of Papua New Guinea. So a lot of the language groups are very, very small, our language being one of them. But what's interesting is right next to our people group is one of the largest languages in all of Papua New Guinea. It's the Angan language. There's about 500,000 Angan speakers, and the Angan language is similar to, or has some similarities to, the Lambena language. There's about 3,500 Lambena speakers. They're spread over about a dozen villages. As you can see, that's our airstrip there. There's no roads going to any Lambena village. They're very isolated. We have the only working airstrip in any Lambena village. So this is the one way that our people have to get in and out. If you can hike out to town or to the hospital, but it takes about a week to get out or more. And so we're very blessed to be in a village that has a working airstrip. And it's kind of the central hub for our people group. I just want to look back actually at the big picture here and talk about where we are in ministry now. So we moved in among the Lambena people in 2020. We actually ended up coming back for a little bit when we had Declan. That was in the midst of COVID. I don't even know if we got to see a lot of you here during that time. But we had Declan and then moved back in 2021. Back to Papua New Guinea, and for the past, I guess that's the past 2 years, we've been in our village, continuing learning language and culture. And so here we are 5 years later, and we still haven't even got to teaching yet. And so why does it take so long? You look at a lot of other organizations, they would have had 5 churches planted by now, and we haven't even started teaching yet. And one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is the importance of understanding language and culture. The Lambena people have a language that is unwritten. There's no cheat sheets to learn the Lambena language. There's no teachers in the Lambena people to be able to teach us their language. Like all of us have been taught English in school if you went to school and learned that. Even though that's our native language, we were taught how to understand our language. They haven't been taught that. So that was a hard thing for even them to explain why their language does some of the crazy things that it does. They would just say, it just does that. That's what it does. And so having to learn not only their language, but also the culture of the Lembena people. Even if I was able to speak their language on the first day I got there, their culture is so different, they wouldn't have been able to understand the message that we have. And so these past 3 years in the village, we've been learning and seeing how much we did not understand when we first got in there back in 2020. So a few things about our people. Our people are hunter-gatherers. They live off the land. Nobody has a job. Their job is to survive. They cut gardens in the side of a mountain, and they build these huge fences around their gardens to keep away the wild animals, the pigs that will come and destroy their gardens. They're hunters. Our people are very good hunters. And you can see there's the wild pig that they killed. They will burn an entire mountainside just to kill a few pigs. And it's been a cool thing being able to go on hunts with them, learn how they hunt, learn how they garden, learn just about their lives there. This man here, he's getting married. This is his tuxedo, if you will. He thinks this looks super cool, and actually the longer I've been there, the cooler I think this looks. Yeah, but that's a good friend of mine. His name is Time. This is the clan that we've been adopted into. When we first got there in our village is made up of 3 different clans. There's about 350 people that live in our village, 3 different clans, and so each of the missionary families was kind of adopted into a different clan that takes care of them, that looks out for them. And so we're part of this clan. They're called the Iparok clan. And the Iparok clan there, even though they're a part of our village, they're still considered kind of outsiders. Iparok, Ipa means water, and Tok means bridge. So we're the Water Bridge clan, and our clan is known for making bridges across the river. This is a picture of one of those rope bridges that they make just out of vines in the jungle. It was very scary crossing this thing. Here in America, I'm kind of a small guy. I'm 5'5", I'm short, but in Lembena, I'm a big guy. I'm taller than most of the men in the village. And so when I was going across this thing, you can see this thing is made out of these vines that are very strong vines, in that they just get in the jungle. But there's all these braces that go across. You can see them there on the bridge there. And as I'm walking across, they're snapping. Snap, snap, snap. And I'm like trying to go a little faster, and they're like, no, slow down, it'll start to sway. And anyway, it was very scary. I've gone across them quite a number of times as our people make these, and they live on the other side of the river, so we go back and forth. I've tried to convince Laura to go across, but she hasn't been brave enough to go across yet. Maybe someday. Yeah. One of the things with our people, the longer we've been there, the more that we've seen is the darkness that our people are trapped in. It's one of the things when you first get in there that they try to hide, just how messed up a lot of the stuff that goes on in the village is. And the longer you're there, the more and more that it comes to the surface. Our people are animists. They believe that spirits manipulate and control everything around them. Day in, day out, everything happens because of the spirits that are at work. And here in the West, we kind of have a underdeveloped sense of the spiritual world. The Bible talks about the spirits, the spiritual warfare that's happening around us, but we live in a culture that denies really any spiritual happenings and that everything has a rational explanation, where the Lembena people are the opposite, where everything is traced back to the spirits around them. When someone gets sick, if the garden is growing or isn't growing, if something happened and their garden got destroyed, if a house burned down, everything goes back to the spiritual world. Something happened to cause the spiritual world to be upset and cause this thing to happen. So our people live in this constant battle to find out, okay, what went wrong or what went right? What spirit is controlling this thing that's happening, and how can I make them happy? How can I appease them so things will go well for me in my life? Our people have, I'm going to go to this one. So this is just Laura sitting down talking with some of the ladies, learning their language and culture. But our people have different kinds of spirits. They have the evil spirits that they call the puyugil. The Puyugi live in the top of the mountains. They hate people. You go up there by yourself, they say they'll kill you. You can only go up there if you're known to these spirits and you can tell them not to harm you, and then you can go and come back. They also have these spirits that they call the Yamakali. The Yamakali spirits that our people have, that they believe, is they can take on the form of anything. In the trade language, they call them Sanguma. And the Yamakali can take on the form of a man or a dog or a pig in the jungle. Anything, it can take on the form of anything. And because our people believe in these spirits and that everything revolves around these spirits, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If they're out hunting and they shoot an animal and the animal doesn't die, if it runs off into the forest, they'll say, that was a spirit animal because it didn't die. Not that they missed it or had a bad shot, but it didn't die. And so if they find it, that obviously wasn't a spirit animal because now it's dead. Or if they meet somebody even on the trail and then later if that person leaves and they don't see any footprints, or they're like, who was that guy? Does anybody know him? No, nobody else saw him. That was a Yamakali. That was a Sanguma man. When we first got in there, we'd studied the cultures of Papua New Guinea in general, and so we knew some of these things, but our people really try to hide those things. Those things don't really take place, they say. We don't believe in those things. But the longer you're there, the more you see it. And one of our first experiences there with this was, we built houses when we first got in there. We built it out of materials in the jungle that we felled trees with chainsaws, and we built our houses on stilts, and just in the middle of our village. And what ended up happening, I'd get up every morning, go down to my office and work and sit with guys. And every morning when I got up in the nice dry ground underneath my house, there would be a big pile of dog poop in the middle of my nice dry ground. And so every morning I'd get up, scoop this and throw it out. What are these dogs doing? I don't have a dog. I don't know why a dog's coming pooping under my house. But it just kept going until finally one of the mornings I'm doing this, one of my Limbena friends comes by. And I said, these dogs, they keep pooping under my house. And he said, well, that's not a real dog. I said, it's not. It seems like real poop to me. He said, no. He said, our dogs don't do that. Our dogs don't poop under people's houses. No. This is a spirit dog. This is a Yamakali. This dog, what happened is people are talking bad about you behind your back. And this dog hears them and comes and poops under your house. So you know they're talking bad about them. That was one of my first experiences with these spiritual animals that they have. And even this, I'll show this picture as well. This is actually another case of that. I did end up getting a dog, which never actually did poop under my house. But we got a dog, and what ended up happening was one of the men in our village, he comes to me one morning, and he says, Micah, your dog killed my muruk. A muruk is it's a cassowary bird. It's kind of like an ostrich or an emu or something like that. Anyway, he says, your dog killed my bird. And these birds are very expensive. They use them and they sell them for like $300 or $400. And so he said, your dog killed it. And I'm like, okay, that's a big deal. My dog did this. Okay, so I go over there, and he did it at a strategic time. None of the guys from my clan were there. They were all gone. And so I'm like going by myself. What's going on here? How do I handle this situation? And so we get there, and there, sure enough, there's his bird. Its head's chewed off. It's gone. They have it in this cage, and its head was sticking out, and it's chewed off. And so I'm like, man, what do I do? He says, you got to pay for it. You got to give me the money for it. And so I'm scrambling. What do I do? Like, where's some of my friends to help me? And then finally one of the guys from my clan walks by. So I'm like, I call him over. Buka, get over here. I need some help. What do I do in this situation? And so he comes over. He talks to the guy for a little bit, and then he pulls me aside, and he says, no. He's just accusing you nothing. They didn't see anything. Something killed his bird, but he didn't see, and you're the missionary. He just wants you to pay him money. And so I ended up leaving, and this is actually a court case. What happens is all the leaders from the village came. We're meeting under my house. They're up against my office there. This is underneath my house. And we're trying to figure out what to do. And what ended up happening is this guy accusing me, he ends up saying, it wasn't your dog. He said, no, a Yamakali possessed your dog. The spirit came on your dog, and it came and ate my bird. So you still have to pay for it, but it wasn't really your dog. It's actually a really cool situation. What ended up happening was my clan ended up taking responsibility for this. They said, well, we're going to say your dog is our dog because our clan is one and the same. Everything is like joint ownership. So we'll take responsibility for this because this guy's not going to accuse us. He's not going to try to fight us for it. He knows that he's lying about this. And so we'll take it. If he really wants to make a big deal out of it, we'll pay it. And I said, no, I'll help pay it. And they're like, no. If he knows you're going to help pay any of it, then he'll keep pressing it. So we'll take responsibility of this. And so that was a really cool time to see my clan kind of take ownership for me and step in for me. Our people, they have a very different sense of justice, like this court case here. Very different sense than you and I have. I'm all about, I need justice. Give me justice for this. But this guy, the guy sitting against the door there, he's the guy in the hat in the middle there. He's the judge, the magistrate in our village. That's his job. He's one of the few guys that actually has a job in our village. And his job isn't to give the right decision, but the decision that will make the most people happy. That's his job. And so when they have a court case, it's always the influential, the powerful people who get the ruling in their favor. And because our people group is a smaller people group surrounded by larger people groups, they never rule in our favor. Even this guy who is a Lambena man, he'll always rule in their favor. An interesting court case once, they had a guy from another village, from the Angan villages. He came and his bag was stolen, or he claims it was stolen, full of money. And so he goes to the magistrate. These people stole my money. He accused 3 different people of stealing from him. And so they have this big court case. All the people come. They give good reasons why it wasn't them. I wasn't even here in the village at the time, or I was over here. This guy says I had, people came with torches. I don't even own a torch. Anyway, so all of them were justified, they didn't do it, wrongfully accused. So there was nobody left to accuse. So the court ruling was, well, we can't blame anybody, so everybody has to pay. So everybody who's accused, you all have to give part of it. And even the guy himself who was accusing them had to pay part. Anyway, it was really, nobody was happy about that. Even though they were trying to make everybody happy, nobody was happy. But that's a typical court ruling. And actually, most of the time, our courts don't even take place because the magistrate, he'll get upset that nobody listens to his rulings, because we live in the middle of the jungle. There's no police. There's no way to enforce the decision that they're making. And that's happened time and time again, where they give a ruling and nobody wants to do it. And so I've even talked to him and said, what are they supposed to do? He said, well, what they have to do is if this person ever goes out to town where there is law enforcement, they have to follow them out and then tell the law enforcement out there that, hey, this guy actually offended me. He's wrong. He needs to be taken to prison. And that's really the only way they can do it. The only sense of law that we have there is might makes right. It's the people who have the weapons, the people who are the hotheads in the village, those are the ones who get their way for fear of fighting and for fear of something happening in retaliation. So another thing with the river, we have this big river right next to our village. It's called the Uwat River. And it's pretty rough. You can see it's very dark. It's a very murky, muddy river. And oftentimes our people will be afraid to go into the river. And I remember one time we were going by the river and they're like, you can't go in, you can't swim. And I said, why can't we swim? It's dark for sure. Is it like they're a riptide or something? Am I going to get pulled under? And I said, no, there's crocodiles in the river. And I said, you guys have crocodiles up here? Do you guys hunt them? And they're like, no, not real crocodiles. We have spirit crocodiles in the river. And it was only for that time, apparently. They were at war with some people downriver. Our river goes down and meets another river called the Sepik River. And they said there's a Sepik clan, a Sepik people that have the power to send up these spirit crocodiles. You can't see them, but if you swim across, they'll come and they'll pull you under and kill you. And they're mad at us right now, so nobody can swim because we'll be killed by these crocodiles. This is another court case, another one with my clan involved. And you see that big pig in the middle there. That pig's being used as payment. And this is another interesting one. Again, it's not so much what is just, but what makes the most people happy. My clan brother, his name is Piwa. He was accused of stealing someone's pig and killing it and eating it with his family. Piwa didn't do this. He said, no, I didn't kill your pig. My brother Piwa, he's a great hunter. Some of these, you're going to see these arrows later. Some of them are from him that he's actually used to kill pigs. He's a great hunter. And this guy accusing him was I don't even know why he was accusing him of doing it. But he was a hothead, someone who was threatening our village to say, if you guys don't give me payment for this, I'm going to come make war against your guys' village. So Piwa, in order to keep the peace in our village, even though he was in the right, hadn't done this, he got this pig, one of his pigs, and was paying this guy back for it. And he kept telling me, Micah, I didn't do this. I didn't steal his pig. I'm not a thief. But because he's threatening this, because he's threatening to bring this against our village, I have to do this to keep the peace in the village. And again, that was actually a really cool moment for us too, looking forward, for him paying a penalty that he didn't deserve to pay to keep the peace. Can you see the correlation there to the gospel? Another thing about their culture that's very different is marriage. So here's a guy in his tuxedo and a lady in her wedding attire, her wedding dress. They always have two ladies. One is the support Mary, or the maid of honor, I guess. And they'll often wear this garb for weeks and weeks at a time, the ladies at least, because once they're promised to a man, they get all dressed up, and until the man pays the bride price. A little different than here. We don't really pay to get a lady and marry her. That's what they do in Papua New Guinea. They have to pay a very large fee demanded by the wife's family to purchase their wife. And it's very interesting, actually, how this works, because the women in our village, they're treated like property. They are. They're purchased, they're bought, they're traded, and if a lady ever decides to leave her husband and go back to her family, they have to reimburse the man for the price that was paid. So there's a lot of pressure put on this lady, because as soon as they're given the money and the pigs for the bride price, they spend it right away. The pigs are eaten, the money's gone, and so to try to fork it back up when she leaves is a very big deal. There's a lot of pressure put on these ladies to stay with their husband, or their clan will oftentimes do terrible things to them. But all of these things have roots in the spiritual world. Even the pigs, even the money, even the bride prices. When after they're married, if they're struggling to have children, it's because they've done something to offend the spirits. Whenever anything goes wrong, it's what have we done to offend the spirits that are causing this to happen. Another interesting thing actually about marriage, this kind of side topic, but very interesting. My clan brother Piwa, his wife, her name is Jonah. And I remember sitting under their house one time. She was getting food ready or something, and I noticed that Jonah is missing the top of her pinky finger, and she's there cutting. I'd never noticed that before, and I said, Jonah, what happened to your finger? Like, how did that get cut off? And she said, oh yeah, I cut it off. I was like, oh, you were cutting something quickly and didn't notice? She said, no, I cut it off on purpose. I said, oh, that's interesting. Why would you do that? I said, oh, I was mad at my husband, and so I cut it off. It's like that explained the whole thing, and she just kept doing what she was doing. It's like, how does that, why being mad at your husband would you cut off your finger? And again, in their culture, she's not allowed to lash out against her husband. And so for her, cutting herself is shaming her husband, because people look at her and say, what happened? Oh, her husband's doing these things to make her upset, and this was her way of getting back at her husband, was by hurting herself. Again, very, very different culture. Very different than, I don't think any wives here would cut off your own finger to get back at your husband. Very different. So our people live off the land. They go to their garden every single day. Our people live off of bananas and sweet potatoes, and we have a lot of really, really good fruits in our village. I'm very thankful for that. Great pineapple, watermelon, mango, guava. Yeah, a lot of very, very good fruits there. There's only 2 seasons in Papua New Guinea. They have the dry season and the wet season. And being in the middle of the rainforest, it's more like the wet season and the wetter season, because it rains all the time. But yeah, our people are very hard workers when they need to be. They clear an entire mountainside with their axes and with their machetes, and every day going up there. And the workforce of the Lembena people is the women. They go up to the garden, they have these huge bags that they'll load up with all sorts of sweet potatoes and bananas and all other things from the garden. And they'll also have a baby on their back, and they'll be carrying water. It's just, they carry so much. And then their husband comes behind, and he has his bow on his shoulder, and nothing else. But these ladies are incredibly, incredibly strong. Okay, sickness. Again, very, very tied to the spiritual world. It's interesting. In our village, we have this guy here. His name is Patrick. He's a Lambena guy who's been trained by a Western doctor. So he can give shots, he can give medicine. He has a little clinic in our village. And even for him, who's been educated outside of our village and educated by an Australian doctor, he still categorizes sickness into two different categories. If he gives medicine to someone and they recover, that's a medical sickness. If he gives medicine to them and they don't recover, that's a spiritual sickness. Okay, what spirit have you offended to make this happen to you? And so everything, and so that's actually different in our village. A lot of villages don't even attribute anything to medical, but because of him, there's some things that they will say, okay, this is medical or this is spiritual. So anytime anyone gets sick and they've taken medicine and it doesn't do anything to help, they'll go through these rituals to try to divine, okay, what have I done? Who have I offended? Because not only do they believe you can make the spirits mad, but they believe their fellow Lambena men and women have power to manipulate the spirits as well. So if you do something to offend someone else, they can go to the spirits who can make you sick. And so when someone gets sick, they go around to all their friends, all their family, what have I done? They apologize, they pay people. It's interesting, I have a picture here of a guy. He has like ashes on his face. I don't know if you can see him there, but he's been sick for a long time. He's taken medicine and it hasn't helped. So he has all the leaders of the village and he's saying, what have I done to offend you? What taboos have I broken? Who's mad at me? Who's doing this to me? And they always say, it's not us, we're not mad at you, thank you for giving me whatever you're giving me, but we're not the ones who are upset at you. And that's how they live their life, is trying to figure out what can we do to manipulate the spirit so things will go well with us. And that takes us to death. Anytime someone dies, even though initially sometimes they may say it's a medical thing, it always later they tie it back to a spiritual thing. Even our aid post worker who's there, he'll always tie it back to a spiritual thing that's happened. We had just gone out on a break. We were gone for 2 weeks. We were by ourselves in the village at the time. We'd gone out for a break and come back. And as soon as the plane lands, some men run up from the river and they say, Micah, you need to come quickly. Grab your digging iron. We have these big old iron bars that we use to dig, to plant posts and different things. He said, grab your irons. There's a lady who's trapped underneath a stone. And so we grabbed it, all the men with the village. We ran up there and got down to the right next to the river here. And by the time we got there, it was too late. This lady had gone to get a drink of water, and it was under a spring, and she'd leaned down under the spring, and then just a fluke thing, the rock had broken and fallen on top of her and crushed her. And so this is her husband there. He's wailing, crying for her as she's died. And he's not a Lambena man. He's from a different people group. And they blamed our people for this. You guys were mad at her. You were mad at him. And so the spirits of your land killed her. You guys need to make payment for this, or else we will go to war and fight you guys. And again, us being a small people group, we're always forking out pigs and money to keep away the bigger clans who accuse us of things happening. One of my good friends, his name is Buka. One of the first times I'd gone to his garden, his garden's way up the mountain, and so he invited me to go with him. He was going to teach me some of the ways that they harvest food. And it was watermelon season. I love watermelons. It's like my favorite season in Papua New Guinea. And so I had this huge watermelon. And I don't know what I was thinking. It was a super long hike up there. But I put this watermelon in my backpack and hiked for like 3 hours up to his pig house that he has up there. And so we get there, and I'm like sweating profusely. And I take the watermelon out. I said, this is going to be so refreshing. And so I give it to Buka, and I say, cut it up and share it with everybody. We were with a group of guys. And like, very shamed, he said, Micah, I can't cut it up. I said, just like, we've eaten food all the time together, Buka. Why can't you cut up the watermelon and share it? He said, I can't. He said, if I cut it and share it with these guys, they'll die. I said, like, what? They'll die? What do you mean? He said, yeah, they're from the Yalip clan. And he said, I'm from the Ipiro clan. And he said, I buried a guy who's from the Yalip clan. And so if my hands touch these food and I give it to them, they'll all die because the death of their brother is on my hands. And it was a really interesting thing. I never heard that before either. And so I ended up cutting it up and sharing it with them, and we could eat it together. But another thing, they believe that if you've touched the dead body of someone from that clan, they can never receive food from you. And they have story after story of when that's happened. If someone will die and they say, oh, he died because he ate food from this person who touched a dead body from that clan. So they're always trying to figure out what taboos to avoid to not die. Our people truly believe that if you can avoid all the taboos, if you can do everything right, that you will continue to live. If you can make all the spirits happy, that you won't die, that death is unnatural, which is, in a sense, true. Death is unnatural. It wasn't the way in the beginning, but death is a result of sin, not a result of breaking some taboo, not the result of offending some of the spirits around us. When a person dies, they believe the river is the road to the spirit. So when someone dies, they'll avoid going to the river for about a week, thinking this is the road the spirit goes. If you go down there when someone has died, their spirit will see you and kill you. When someone dies too, you see this guy, he's wailing. And it's when you first hear wailing, you never forget it. It's like one of the most extreme things, and really seared into your mind. But for our people, they don't wail necessarily because they're sad. It seems like they do. They are grieved for this person, but there's an art to wailing. You wail to let the person's spirit know that you're sad. Because if you don't wail for them, then their spirit will look on and see, you're not sad that I died. You were part of the reason. Maybe you're the reason that I died, and then their spirit will kill you as well. So they have to wail. And it's just such an interesting thing to see people wailing, all out wailing 1 second, and literally the next second we'll be laughing and joking about something. And it's just like, what just happened? Like, I thought you were grieving, and then it's just like this switch that they can turn on to show that they're upset, to show the spiritual world that they're upset. And because of that belief that they have, that everything in life is manipulated by the spirits, in order for you to have success in life, it's because you know what spirits to communicate with, what spirits to keep happy so that life goes well. There's certain spirits who help the gardens grow well. There's certain spirits that help you if you're in our river, they pan for gold, for you to get gold. If you know the right spirits, you will get gold. And because they believe that everything revolves around that, everything doesn't come from hard work, but through spiritual power and manipulation, imagine how the missionary fits into that. Here we come on an airplane, having supplies brought in from there, and they look at our success in life, and they think it's because you guys have a connection to the spiritual world that we don't have. You know the right words to say. You know what spirit to manipulate and appease in order for you to get the stuff that you have. And so when we first moved into our village, we had a wide open door to come in. They wanted us there. Yes, you guys obviously have something we don't have, a connection to the spiritual world that we want. And in one sense, it's good. It allowed us to come in there with wide open arms. But if we were able even to share the gospel on the first day or share the version of the gospel that we would have tried to share, the massive misunderstanding they would have had of the gospel, would have been incredible. And we wouldn't have known it until the longer we've been there, the more we've seen the misunderstandings that are in place, the barriers they have to understanding the gospel. Our people live in spiritual darkness and bondage. Their lives are full of fear and frustration because they struggle to avoid all these taboos that they're taught from a young age. Don't do this, don't eat that, don't touch this, don't go there, so that they can have success in life. But even if they're able to keep all these things, to avoid all the taboos, to do all the right things, they still experience sickness and death. And it's incredibly frustrating to them. And that's why we have this wide open door for the gospel. It's because they're disillusioned with their system, their way of life. And it's interesting seeing how their belief system is, even though how messed up it is and how wrong it is is paving the way for the gospel. I remember talking with one of the men in the village. Actually, it's this guy in the picture there. And how frustrated he was with their system. He says, people come, they tell us you have to stop doing all these things. Stop what they call sinning. Stop chewing the betel nut. Stop smoking. Stop gambling. Stop all the taboos that they have to do. And he said, we try and we try and we try. And people still get sick. People still die. And he said, what can we do? I've tried. And actually what was interesting is he wasn't saying, I've kept all the taboos and it still happens. He said, I can't stop doing these things. And it was interesting seeing that, that's the purpose of the law, right? Even though they don't have the law like we have in the Bible, they have a law to themselves that they can't keep their own standards that they have. Every one of our people, every person that I've met at least, they're a liar and a thief. They steal from us, they steal from each other. And stealing is a very wrong thing in their culture, but they all do it to each other. And every time I'll be with people and we'll be walking by someone's garden and they run into the garden and start taking stuff. I'm like, what are you doing? Is that your garden? No. Oh, it's fine. It's ripe. It's going to go bad. So I'm just taking it. I said, if someone did that to your garden, would that be okay? No, but it's fine. It's going to go bad. They'll never know. And so they do that all the time to each other. And at first, when we first got there, we thought that was okay. Oh, okay, it's going to go bad, so they're doing that, okay. And then I remember that happened to one of my friends, Piwa's dad. His name is Bevan. He's a great friend of mine. And he had a stalk of bananas that was ripe, very, very ripe, and he was gone at his pig house. And so all the men in the village came over, and they were taking bananas from it. And I asked him, what, aren't you guys stealing? He said, no, he'd be fine with it if he was here. And the next day, Bevan got back. And he came up to me and he said, Micah, who stole my bananas? Who was taking those? And I'm like, I'm sorry, Bevan, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. But it was just showing that, they're all manipulators. And they don't have the truth of the gospel. What would you expect? They're trapped in darkness. And I've talked about this man before, the prophet Moses. He's the main spiritual leader in our area. He's very influential, not only among the Lambena people, but actually on a political scale. Very, very influential man. He claims to be the mouthpiece of God to our people. And everything the prophet says, our people believe. They literally bow down to the prophet. If he says they need to go to the garden and they all need to bring him a pig, they'll do it. If he says they need to go pan for gold and give him part of that or give him all of that, they'll do it. Because he says, if you do what I say, you will have success in all that you do. Your gardens will grow, you won't get sick. And the reason you are getting sick is because you're not obeying what I'm telling you to do. You're breaking the taboos, the rituals that I've told you to do, you're not doing. And it's really interesting, this guy. You could be praying for the prophet. Very, very influential man. But what's fascinating to me still is this man. When we first moved into Lambena, we met the prophet. And he tried to take credit for us. It was such a good thing for us to come to the village. He said, I'm the reason they're here. I manipulated the spirits to get them to come. And when we told we were going to come and we were going to teach, he's telling everyone, listen to their teaching when they come. Because he's taking credit for us, he's also promoting us. Which is I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. Why this guy would tell people to come listen to our talk when we come and share it. And he still says that. He still tells people when they come to teach, you need to go and listen. And you can be praying that in our interactions with the prophet, that it doesn't come to a confrontation. We've been able to be cordial with the prophet so far. We've been able to have a relationship with him. He lives in a different village, so we don't see him all the time. But our interactions have been good because we haven't had to confront him. He hasn't called us out on anything yet. I can't affirm the prophet. What he's saying is false. And he's a liar, he's a manipulator, and he's teaching a false gospel in there. But And again, I think some of this is because he recognizes that we would be against him. But this guy's a master manipulator. If there's someone in our village who's beginning to doubt, if they've been doing all the things the prophet has been telling them to do, and there's still bad stuff still happening to them, and they're starting to question, and I'll talk to them, or someone in the village will talk to them, and they're like, yeah, I don't know what the prophet's saying. The next time the prophet's there, I don't know how he hears about it, but in a public meeting, he'll have the person stand up publicly in front of everybody and reaffirm him and say, hey, didn't I make this prophecy before and say this was going to happen? Oh, yes, prophet, you said that. Didn't I say this was going to happen? Oh, yes, prophet, you said that. Isn't what I'm saying true? Yes, prophet, what you're saying is true. And then I'll have them sit back down. And I've been in those meetings, and I'm sitting there praying, God, please don't have him call on me, because I can't say that. And if it comes to that confrontation, our people literally worship the prophet. And I know on day one, if he'd done that, we wouldn't have been allowed to be in that village. They would have all kicked us out. But we've been in there for long enough that we have our own platform. We're not like the prophet. We don't lie. What we say is true. We keep our word. We have a platform to stand on, and now we have friends in the village. If it came down to it now, I believe there is some that would side with us, who would remove themselves from the prophet. And that's why he hasn't, I don't think now he's called us out yet. But be praying that we can keep that relationship, that we can keep his stamp of approval, kind of, so that when it gets to the gospel presentation, then it will be God's word that's confronting the prophet, not what I'm saying, not what the missionary says versus what the prophet says, but what God says versus what this prophet, so-called prophet, says. This is actually one of the rituals that we witnessed. There were people in this village that were dying, and they were trying to figure out what was wrong. So a prophet, not the main prophet, but a different prophet, came, and he told the people, the spirits are offended, and so you need to do this ritual to appease them so people won't die. And so they killed a ton of pigs. This is the most pigs I think I'd ever seen killed together. There were 6 or 7 pigs that were killed here, and to appease the spirit. And what's interesting, I'll talk about this for just a minute. I know we're running short on time, but in our village, if you look them up online, you can look up the Lembena people, and on the Joshua Project if you want. And I like the Joshua Project. I think they do a lot of good things. But if you look up the Lembena people on the Joshua Project, it'll have them as reached for the gospel. And I hope I've showed you from this, our people are not reached for the gospel. They do not understand any of the gospel. But what's happened before is someone came in, and in the trade language, they shared the gospel and said, who wants to believe in Jesus, and your life will go better. Your gardens will grow. You won't get sick. You won't die. And our people said, yes, I want that. And so they said, hey, you got to stop having witch doctors, but they just changed the name to prophet. Okay? You got to stop having these spirits. Our people don't, even these spirits, we've gotten these names from them, but a lot of the time what they'll do is, well, when we're talking about these spirits, they'll say, oh, sorry, not Yamagali, Satan. They're all Satan. So you got to change the terms of everything. They've changed the terms to make it more Christian. But our people don't understand the gospel at all. Even their name for God, Anasu, is their high spirit that they have in Lembena. And that's their term for God. And so oftentimes they'll try to correct themselves too and say Gode instead of Anasu. It's one and the same, but they're trying to use the right terminology. And that's a huge thing among animistic people, is having the right words to say to manipulate the spirits. And so be praying for the Lembena people. Be praying that we can continue to learn their language and culture. We're close. We're not finished yet. I can speak the language, but I can't teach yet. And that's one of the hardest things for me. My passion is to teach, to share. So I became a missionary, is to do this. And right now we're not at that stage. And it's hard seeing people like my friend who's there, and you can't share it yet. So be praying specifically for the Lembena people that they would endure, that these people who are at this stage, and God knows, it's all in God's timing, and I have to remind myself of that too. God could have had us move in there years ago. We could have had another missionary family move in there. but he had us there for the time that we're there now. And pray that we can learn the language quickly, and that the people's hearts would be open to it, that they would come and they would hear, that we can share clearly and not miscommunicate this such an important message, the most important thing they're ever going to hear. And it's funny, actually, looking at this false gospel that they have, that if you can do all these things to manipulate the Spirit and life will go well with you here, that how much better actually the gospel is. It's not about these things that you have to do to manipulate God so you will have success in this very, very short life. All we have to do is believe in him, and you will have immeasurable riches above. So be praying for our team. Be praying for endurance for us as we're there. Praying that we can understand all the things about this culture. This is my coworker, Adam, sitting with some of the Lambena guys. This is our daily life, sitting with them, trying to learn to speak like them, to talk like them, so that when we can share the gospel, we share it as an insider, as one of them, in a way that they can understand, a way that they can relate to. And we're going to start in Genesis, lay a new foundation, because the foundation they have is no foundation at all. The thing I want to close with, I'm actually going to have Ron come up here for a second. This is my friend Buka, and I've had these up here for a bit. Maybe you guys have seen them. But this is a bow and arrow from the Lambena people. Buka made this. He sharpened these arrows. He sharpened this bow, and he gave it to me, and he said, bring it back to America. He said, show it to your friends, to your people. Tell them that Buka made it. So Buka made some, and my friend Bebin, who's he's my dad in the village. He's the clan. He's the father of the clan. Actually, he calls Addie and Declan, he calls them grandson and granddaughter, and they call him grandpa, and they call his wife grandma. And so he made some of these as well and sent them back. And he said, tell them thank you for sending you. They're very thankful that we're there. They think we're there for all the wrong reasons, that we're going to give them these magic words so that they won't get sick, so that their gardens will grow well. But they don't understand the riches that they're going to have if they believe. So he wanted me to give this to you guys, and thank you. Just thank you for sending us. Thank you for being a part of our ministry. And I know we don't have any of the cool stories to share about believers in the village yet, but it's coming. It's coming one day. I wanted to share a verse, actually, before we finish. It's Hosea. Sorry, it's actually Psalm 102:18. And it says that, actually, I'm going to have to look this up. I only have part of the verse here. Does anybody have a Bible on them? Give me 1 second. I want to get the verse right. This verse is really, really good. So it's Psalm 102, verse 18. And it talks about a people who is not yet created. And in thinking about the Lambena people, they have not yet been born again. They are not yet a people. Sorry, 102:18, you have it? Okay, you want to read that for me, Bob?
Sure. 102:18, let this be recorded for a generation to come, so that a people yet to be created may praise the Lord.
Yeah. And that's the Lambena people. I believe there is a church that will be born one day among the Lambena people, and that's what we're praying for. And you guys bow your heads and pray with me. God, I thank you. I thank you for your word, how your word is true. I thank you that we have access to your word, and I pray that we wouldn't keep it to ourselves. I pray for the Lambena people who are trapped in darkness. I pray that you would be preparing their hearts for the truth that will come. Give us wisdom and understanding, that give us endurance. God, I pray that you would do the work, that you would build your church. You say that unless the Lord builds a house, the laborers labor in vain. Lord, I pray that we would be doing this in your strength, that you would be the one building, and that we would just rely on you. Thank you for tonight, Lord. Thank you for all these people coming out. I pray that we would go forth, sent to those around us. Pray these things in your name, Lord. Amen. Oh, question time. I don't know if we have time.
You spoke about languages and sharing them through the language. Do they have an alphabet?
They do not. Yeah, great question. Yeah, they don't have an alphabet. We're going to have to create an alphabet for them, teach them to read and write in their own language because it's not there. We want them to be able to understand when we teach that it's not just me saying it, it's not just the word of Micah, but that they can look at God's word and they can read it for themselves and compare it and say, this is from God, not from the mouth of Micah. Yeah, very, very good question, Mike. Yeah, Lynn.
You mentioned paying for wrongs or rights or whatever. What's the currency?
Yeah.
What is money?
Yeah, so our people actually do have Papua New Guinea money. It's called the kina. A lot of places, remote places don't, but because our people have access to gold, I mentioned they pan for gold in the river. So they do, and then people come and buy the gold from them. So actually, our people are very familiar with just regular money, coins and stuff. Yeah, where a lot of actually villages aren't, but that's a good question. Any other questions? Sorry if we're a little bit over. Yeah, Gary.
You showed that picture of the packages that came on the plane,
Mm-hmm.
and the people associate you with having good relationship with the spirits,
Mm-hmm.
and yet they associate all kinds of sickness with evil spirits. What do you do when you have, or if you get like a cold or stomach flu? How do you handle that thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. We do have medicine that we take, and so most of the time when they see us take the medicine and get better, and they think, oh, you guys are different than us. So even a lot of the things with the spirits, if I say, well, I can do that, and I don't get sick, well, you're different. You're a missionary, or you're from America. It just doesn't work like that for you. So we're kind of excluded from some of those things. Because I would think that, like you say, you can't do this or you die. Well, I'll go do that. And they're like, no, you're just different. It doesn't work like that. Yeah. Any other? Yeah.
How did it come about that you were able to get implanted into this community? Did you find them, or did your agency find them? How did that work?
Yeah, really good question. Yeah, so in Papua New Guinea, there's still hundreds of languages that don't have missionary presence, who don't have a Bible translated, but they've seen other people groups that do have it. And it is true, when a missionary moves in, there are things that they do to help the people, because we care for them not just about their spiritual well-being, but also about their physical well-being. So we do help them. We help maintain the airstrip, and we do some of those things. And they see that, and they think, we want that. We want what they have. We see these guys come in, and again, thinking of that spiritual connection as well. They have an in with the Spirit, and if they can teach us that, then we can have that as well. So our people had seen that. And they'd actually been asking for years and years for missionaries to come. And there's a lot of people groups in Papua New Guinea that have been asking for years and years and years for missionaries to come. Again, they're asking for the wrong reason, but it's a wide open door. And there's just not enough missionaries to send to all these places. But really good question. Any other questions? Yes?
Do you know of any of the other missionaries that have been other parts of New Guinea that have been able to make a connection with the people to the point where they actually were able to become Christians?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that. My cousin John here, sitting in the front row, he's a missionary to Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
They've presented the gospel. They have an awesome church in Papua New Guinea among the Kaje people. So yeah, come up and talk to John and ask your questions about that. I always tell John I'm jealous of where he's at. We hope to be there one day, but they're in an awesome stage of ministry where they presented the gospel and they're training up new believers, discipling them into being leaders among the church. So, yeah. Yeah.
It's been done.
It's been done, yes. It's awesome to have people that, even when we went through training, people who trained us who've done it themselves and gone through it themselves. And even my other brother here is Caleb. He's about to leave to go to the Philippines to do the same thing. So we're all at different stages in this, but it's cool to see some who are on the end part, middle, beginning. But yeah, but good question. Any other last questions? Yes?
So what's going to be your clue that it's time to share the gospel?
Yeah, that's really good. We have actually language consultants who are trained missionaries who've done it themselves, who've learned the language. They come in about every 6 months and test our language. And so they'll sit me down with a Lambena guy, somebody who can speak the trade language as well. And so they'll have me say a phrase in the Lambena language because our consultants can't understand what I'm saying. But this guy will translate it back to them. And they're really good at their job of gauging where we're at, how easily I'm talking. If I'm struggling through something, okay, you're probably not at this stage of it, or what I can say and what I can't say. And so last time I had a language evaluation, there's 9 different levels of language until you're checked out. I was at level 7 out of 9. So I have 2 levels left before I'm checked out and get the green light to teach. And even once they get the green light, again, we're going to do literacy, teaching them to read and write first, start doing lesson development, translating some of the Bible. But hopefully this next term we'll be able to do that. And so I'm excited to go back in January and
Say something for us?
okay. It's not all forgotten. It's always like, what do I say? Bianca Pilopo is, what do I say? What should I say? Yeah.
You say dinner's ready.
Okay. Dinner's ready? Okay. Ne nawalapili is I'm going to eat dinner. Yeah, I'm going to eat food. Yeah, that's good. Okay, any other questions? Yes. Sorry, Matt.
You said they don't have a written language. Will you play any role in creating that?
Yeah, and we'll probably use a lot of it based off of the trade language, which is sourced from actually a lot of English characters. And so I'm not a linguist. One of my coworkers, actually my sister, she's like a linguistic genius. She went through linguistics and like aced everything. And so I'm like, Anna, whatever you say is good. I'll go with that. And so she's working on that. And we're actually close to being done with figuring out an orthography of what characters we're going to be using and all of that. And we'll give it a test run once we do literacy. And a lot of times what happens when missionaries do that, the people, they have a say in it. They look at it and they're like, yeah, I don't really like the way you did that, so I might have to redo it. But we'll do our best to do that. But there's a lot of things, just decisions you got to make on how to do things. We have a unique language. I think all languages are unique, but there's ways that I want to do it. But is this really the best way for them to learn to read and write? But yeah, good question, Matt. Okay, anything else? All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Good job.